Joyce.
Hi, Ariel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's already 1:03, and I think we still have a lot more who would want to enter the meeting room. So let's wait a little bit more. Okay, probably in 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. Carol, Attorney Guts.
Hello,
Is he here
Ariel.
already? Dito na siya or ikaw?
Siya na.
Okay.
Siguro pa-ano na yan, pa-login na yan.
Pa-login na. Okay.
Oo.
Sige,
Okay.
kasi
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you. Labo
Have you all had lunch?
Yeah.
Ganun.
Early lunch. Ilan natin? Ilan ba to? 68. Ayun. Sige, mag-shout out muna tayo. Hello, Marawi State University, MSU. Maraming salamat for being here. And thanks to JSAP for coordinating this program today. Our first seminar for the year, Carol, no?
Yes.
Our first seminar. This is not a public forum, but this is a seminar actually. By the PPI, organized by the PPI and JSAP, with support, of course, from Seidel Foundation. Yeah, on and off yung ano natin, ang ating partner. Hindi na naman on and off, but we had a partnership with JSAP last year for 2 public forums, if I'm not mistaken, right? Public forums naman yan. But today is going to be a seminar. So meron lang po problema ang Zoom pala according to our tech team so that you guys inside the meeting room are not able to see or watch our pre-programming videos. Pero yung mga nanonood po live via live FB streaming, sila po yung nakakapanood ng mga videos ng PPI. Pero tayo nasa meeting room, sa Zoom room, hindi, unfortunately. But of course, for more details on our programs and other activities, you can just visit the page of the Philippine Press Institute and also the page of Seidel Foundation. And at the end of the session, of the last session, we are providing a link to the survey questionnaire evaluation form. So you guys have to fill that out so that you get your certificates of participation. Okay, only those inside the meeting room will receive their certificates of participation. Shout out din tayo sa ating mga resource persons natin ngayon. Hi, Lina. Hi, Froilan. Is Froilan here? And Sir Jamal from JSAP. Hello. Hello. Ayan, nandito na. Si Froilan wala pa ata, no? Ayun. Sige.
Hello, Ariel.
Hi, Lina. Good afternoon to you.
Oh, just in time, natapos yung BBM rally sa next esquina ko.
Nakadaan ka rin. Oo, nako, ang init ng panahon ngayon. It's going summer. Kaya feel na natin ang init ng panahon sa buong araw. Pero medyo malamig pa rin. Medyo malamig pa rin simoy ng hangin. As well, thanks for that. Bago mag-summer, medyo nararanasan pa rin natin yung okay na simoy ng hangin. Okay, ano, kasi yung iba naman sa ibang lugar, hindi naman masyadong malamig or baka mainit na rin sa gabi. Ayun. Pero sing-init ng ating diskusyon ngayong araw na to, di ba, Joyce, ano?
Yeah, actually, we're very excited for this discussion.
Oo, nakafocus tayo sa Mindanao. Ang ating mga kasamahan sa Mindanao. So, you guys are excited already, kami rin, ano? So, yun. Marami na tayo ngayon. It's already 81. Oh. Ayun, si Attorney Guts, tingnan natin kung andito na. Si Attorney Guts. Parang wala pa siya. Prof. Lou, good afternoon.
Hello, magandang hapon.
And to all JSAP members, ang tawag nyo ka-JSAP, ipa-plug na natin. Kung hindi pa po kayo member ng JSAP, ng Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, please visit the website or page para po maging member kayo ng JSAP. Ayan. At hi din, shout out din sa mga JSAP members of the board na andito ngayon. At sa members na rin ng PPI. Oo, at sa tech team natin, sila Care, sila Risa, Ate Bess, Sheila, Rods, Priscilla. Ayan. Si Ami. Ami, are you here? Si Ami, si Ami. Ayun, si Professor Ben Domingo. Tatay Ben, hello. Good afternoon to you.
Ay, dito si Sir Ben. Nakakatuwa.
Yeah, oo nga. Nag-scroll up and down ako sa mga familiar names. Of course, si Kat ng Internews. Hi, Kat. Ang Internews po ang isa sa ang principal partner ng JSAP. Yun.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Through USAID.
Kat.
Ayan.
Hello po.
Carol, andito na ba si Attorney Gotts?
Wala pa yan. Kinokontak
Jimmy is
ko.
also here.
Wala, saan siya? Baka ikaw na. Wala namang instruction.
Wala naman. Excited yun kasi this is our first seminar for the year.
Kaya nga,
Ano ko lang.
hintayin
Baka
natin
nasa
ng-
call lang. Ano ko. Ha? Sandali.
Oo, kasi it's already 1:09. And we usually start on the dot, di ba? Alam natin yan. Ayun. Oh. I guess hindi lang from Marawi State University, MSU, ang andito ngayon, Joyce. I think we also have participants from other schools in Mindanao. Although this is not a scholastic press outreach program, we're so lucky that Jason was able to coordinate with MSU to pull in attendance today. So,
Andito
yun.
ang Sulu State College.
Ayun, sige, oo.
Yeah. We also have members of the Union of Communication Artists of MSU Marawi City. Dalawa kasi yung MSU eh. One is in my province sa Iligan.
Oo, correct. But this one is in Marawi.
From Notre Dame University in Cotabato, meron dito.
Hi. O sige, habang hinihintay natin yung iba pumasok sa meeting room, meron kaming magandang announcement, a reminder sa inyo. Kayo pong mga schools na andito nga, especially colleges and universities, if you want to be a partner of PPI sa Scholastic Press Outreach Program namin, which will be conducted throughout the year, please do contact us kasi pwede po kami makipag-partner sa inyo and we will make you a host or partner or school partner, tawag namin dyan, sa aming Scholastic Press Outreach Program, which actually happens every month, Joyce, no? Dalawa.
Yeah.
For this
At
month,
least two per
meron kami, meron tayong Zamboanga, isang Zamboanga, that's with Ateneo de Zamboanga University or ADZU, and then also in March, Visayas naman, tinatapos na namin yung, tapos na yung Bukidnon, pagkatapos ng Zamboanga, in March, meron kaming Antiques, University, ano ba?
Antique.
University, oo. University of Antique, sorry.
Yeah.
University of Antique, tsaka UP Iloilo, yun, UP Visayas pala yun, UP Iloilo. UP Visayas and Iloilo. Ayun. So in the succeeding months, meron pa po kaming Scholastic Press Outreach Program. Ang theme po namin ay media at pandemya. Ayun. So umiikot po yun sa Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. In April, babalik kami sa Luzon. Ayun. Luzon, NCR naman kami. Tapos, Mindanao, Visayas ulit, tapos Mindanao. Baliktad. Mindanao, tapos Visayas. Ayun. Tingnan nga natin si Attorney Gatso. So lahat po ng mga programs and activities natin, as I said earlier, they're all posted in the PPI FB page. Para po sa karagdagang detalye, pwede mo pong bisitahin yon at saka yung page po ng Seidel Foundation. Ayun. Ayan na si Hello Tito Froy.
Si Kuya Froy, andito na.
Yeah, oo.
Hi, Lina.
Oo, si Lina. Si Sir Jamal ng JSAP. who's going to talk about social media. Exciting to kasi nakafocus sa Mindanao. Titingnan natin kung ano ba yung anong kinalaman ng kasi aspirations ng Mindanao, tsaka yung paano ba ginagamit ang digital platform para maisulong ang katotohanan or ang disinformation or misinformation. So, two faces, di ba? Si Attorney Gus pa kami nahirapan lang pumasok, We already have 108 inside the meeting. We are so lucky because you are going to get your certificates of participation after you answered the evaluation or survey questionnaire. Whose link will be provided in the chat room.
Makain. Anong food yan, Sir Ben?
Hindi ka narinig.
Tumute pa si Sir.
Si Ami din wala pa. Anyway.
Lugaw lang ito.
Carol, ano ng update? Kay Attorney
Sarap yan, Sir.
Gats? Wala pa rin.
Lugaw.
Out of the office pala, Ariel.
What do you mean?
Baka
Ako na lang
si
daw.
Sir.
Oo, sige. Oo. Dapat sinabihan ka na maaga. Alright. Alright. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Marami na kayong narinig before the start of the program, but let me just introduce myself. My name is Ariel C. Sabelino. I'm the Executive Director and Trustee of the Philippine Press Institute, also known as the National Association of Newspapers. For more info about PPI, please visit our website, the www.fieldpressinstitute.net. We also have a news website dedicated to pandemic and elections reporting, the www.ppanewscommons.net. And with me also is PPI Seminar Director Joyce Pañares. This first seminar of the year is being brought to you by the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines and the Philippine Press Institute, with support from Seidel Foundation, which has been so generously supporting our 3-year contract partnership, Joyce, pang third year na natin. Hopefully we get to be renewed or have a renewed partnership in 2023. But sasabihin ko sana 2022 nga pala. 2021 last year. Ayun, maraming salamat, Seidel Foundation and Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines. Napaka-importante po ang pag-uusapan natin sa seminar na ito. At as I said, nakafocus tayo sa Mindanao at saka ano bang kinalaman ng digital platform sa usapin or mga bagay-bagay na kailangan natin pag-usapan at sa Mindanao or about Mindanao as the elections are fast approaching. Ayun. Please welcome the chairperson of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, my very good friend, Assistant Professor Lucia Tangi. Magandang hapon sa iyo.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Sana ay nasa mabuti kang kalagayan.
Ay, Ayan, medyo mainit lang, pero mainit din ang paksa natin ngayong hapon.
Oo.
Okay, so Mindanao is home to 15.45 million registered voters, or that's around 22.9% of the total 67.5 million registered voters nationwide for these May elections. Conflict, displacement, and poverty continue to be major issues here in Mindanao. So in fact, the highest incidents of poverty are in Mindanao. So take note, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, for the first semester of 2021, the poverty incidence among families is the highest, found 39.4% in the Bangsamoro. 39.4% in Bangsamoro, And actually, this is already an improvement compared to 55.9% in 2018. And 31% in Caraga region, that's the poverty incidence, and 30.9% in Region 9, or we call this the Zamboanga Peninsula. And in the Philippines, just to give you an idea, the incidence of poverty on the average is 18%. So marami sa mga families sa Mindanao ay come from the poor families, no? Yeah. But despite this, yung conditions sa Mindanao, we have noticed that Mindanao, the Mindanao agenda is seldom discussed in election campaigns and rallies, no? So the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Incorporated is proud to partner with the Philippine Press Institute for this afternoon's webinar titled Digital Journalism and the Mindanao Vote. I am proud to tell you that our main speakers for today are all from Mindanao, and therefore they have a heart for Mindanao. And we are also grateful to MSU main campus, especially to Professor Notch Herrera for helping us in coordinating. Kasi po because of it's quite difficult to contact schools in Mindanao, napakalaking challenge po. And of course, we also would like to thank other universities like Sulu State College, Claret College of Isabela. And we also have Bangsamoro Parliament. They are also here. Maraming salamat po. At saka of course, marami pa po in the Luzon area and Visayas area na universities who are with us. Marami pong salamat. I think napakarami ninyo. I cannot mention you all. And I hope that this afternoon's webinar will be very useful to you in understanding Mindanao. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Professor Lutangi. Ayun, reminder lang po, kung hindi pa kayo member ng JSAP, anong ibig sabihin nga ng JSAP? Makinig kayo, is Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines. Hindi pa kayo member, ay magpa-member na pa. Visit their website and also their page, FB page. Ayun, maraming salamat, JSAP. Again, having mentioned about all our programs for PPA, just visit our pages. Kasama ng, syempre, ng Seidel Foundation, tsaka website po namin para po sa karagdagang detalye sa aming programa throughout the year. Thanks very much, Seidel Foundation. Having said that, I'd like to call one of the project directors of Seidel Foundation on behalf of its resident representative to the Philippines, Attorney Guts Heineke. Please welcome Caroline Lee. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Ariel. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Caroline Lee, Program Coordinator of the Seidel Foundation. Good afternoon to Assistant Professor Lucia P. Tangi, to our phenomenal speakers, quite a lineup we have here today. And the Seidel Foundation is absolutely proud to be partnering with the Philippine Press Institute today for this very first seminar for 2022. And well, the Seidel Foundation has been active in the Philippines for more than 40 years now, building up democracy and good governance. And that is also why we're really proud to have this joint activity today with the Philippine Press Institute, also in cooperation with the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, to focus on the very important topics of digital journalism and the Mindanao vote. More and more nowadays, we, in all our activities and communications, we are increasingly pushed into the cyberspace. So this is really a relevant matter. And it is, in any society, it is important to have active journalists who are keeping us abreast of what is actually happening on the ground. So once again, thank you very much Ariel, and everyone for participating in this activity. I am looking forward to a very exciting, very dynamic exchange and discussion, and I wish you the same. Thank you. Oh,
Thanks,
before I
Carol.
forget,
Yeah,
regards
sure.
from our regards
Yeah.
from our resident representative, Mr. Götz Heinecke.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be able to join or catch up later. Carol, thanks very much, Carol, for joining us today. And thanks Seidel Foundation for supporting this project of the PPI and all other projects throughout the year. At this point, wag na natin patagalin pa kasi excited na tayong lahat para sa topic na to. Please welcome our seminar director, also news editor of Manila Standard. Please welcome Joyce Pañares. Good afternoon, Joyce.
Hi, Ariel. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Set the tone, and Carol and Ariel have set the tone for our discussions today. Before I call our first speaker, siguro just to contextualize where Mindanao is situated insofar as the 2022 elections is concerned. Professor Lu earlier mentioned that almost 1/4 of the total registered voters are coming from Mindanao. In terms of per region, Davao has 3.2 million registered voters. Northern Mindanao has 3 million. Soxarjan has 2.6 million. Barm has 2.5. Zamboanga Peninsula has 2.29 million. And Caraga has 1.8 million. And if you break it down into cities, Davao is actually the third most vote-rich city in the country, followed by Zamboanga in 10th place, Cagayan de Oro in the 13th, and General Santos pang 14th place. So, sometimes we always say that there's an Imperial Manila mindset, The farther you are from the capital, the farther out of mind ka rin minsan pagdating sa agenda and sa ating policies. And I think that is also one of the what we lament with the Mindanao agenda. Is it actually being heard? Is it being considered in the formulation of policies? What exactly do we mean when we say there is a Mindanao vote? Then hopefully our speakers will address these questions and help us understand the situation in Mindanao and insofar as the upcoming elections is concerned. So the first speaker, of course, is a good friend, si Lina Sagaral Reyes. She's a veteran journalist and a feminist from Northern Mindanao, and she will be discussing the women of the Mindanao vote. Is there anything beyond the numbers? Hi, Lina. Good afternoon.
Hi. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lina.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yes, Lina, we can hear you.
Okay. Should I start?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. I thank PPI, Hans Seidel Foundation, and the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, and also the newspaper or the publications that are members of PPI who had adopted me on several occasions so I can join trainings at the PPI, the Philippine Press Institute. These are the Mindanao Observer, Gold Star, and Sunstar Davao. Good afternoon, everyone. Over at the multimedia digital platform Rappler last week, journalist John Nery gathered 3 key politicians based in Mindanao, and Pia Ranada, the senior reporter, was covered Duterte in the previous elections, the 2016 elections, and is covering Esco Moreno in this campaign for the May 2022 elections. And they discussed about the Mindanao vote. But the discussion was in relation to the presidential race and its outcome. This afternoon, I would like us to take a look at the Mindanao vote with a gender lens and inwardly within the island and ask ourselves what else should matter for digital journalists in this election season. When it comes to Mindanao, to the Mindanao vote, especially for for positions for the legislative positions and for local government units. Let us consider first the numbers. The Mindanao vote in 2019 consisted of 23.34% of the total registered voters in the Philippines. That's 14.4 million out of 61.8 million. Of these, women consisted 7.22 million or 50%, and men were 7.1 million or 49.6%. For this coming 2022 elections, total votes in Mindanao consist of almost 24%. That's 23.9 of the total registered voters. And that's around 15.7 million out of 65.7 million voters nationwide. What else should matter to us other than these numbers of women voters? At this point, there are three other sets of numbers that we should look into. First is the voter turnout. And second, the women among the candidates. And third, the women among the elected officials. As in the overall national tally, in Mindanao's 6 regions, women outnumber men in all but 2 regions in 2019. And this is in Caraga and in the BARM area, and in the BARM. In the latest tally, Region 9, Zamboanga Peninsula, joins Caraga and the BARM in having more men than women. In case of the voter turnout, voter turnout in 2019 was lower than the 2016, which was 84%, and in 2019 it's 75%. And in Mindanao, it's 75.77. For men, it's for women, it's 76.39, and for men, it's 76.045%. And this is that means 10.52 million out of 14 million voters out of 14.4 million registrants voted in the 2019 elections. The highest turnout was in the Caraga area. Although the Caraga area has more men than women, they have a higher turnout of women. That's 80.99%, compared to men who the voter turnout is only 80.36. And the lowest turnout was in the ARM, 73.67 for women, for men, and 74.27 for women. Now, for candidates per region in the 2019 local elections, The highest was in Caraga still. There were 22.26 women candidates in the Caraga area, while in Region 10 it was 20.92%, and in Region 9 it was 20.87%. And it was lowest in the arm at 16.15%. These are the positions for Congress representatives, governor, for the LGUs, governor, vice governor, members of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan, city or town mayors, and members of the Sangguniang Bayan or Sangguniang Panlungsod. We can see that women outnumber men as voters in Mindanao, as in the Philippines. Women also outvoted men in Mindanao as in the rest of the country. But the tragic irony is that women candidates are outnumbered by men candidates, and women elected officials are still outnumbered by men. But actually, we have come a long way. Way back in 1995, I wrote a story about Mindanao women and elections shortly after the national and local elections in May. Here is the news clipping. I wrote this for the Women's Feature Service, and it came out in Manila Times, dated July 9, 1995. It was datelined Dipolog City. In 1995, that's 27 years ago, the epitome of state-of-the-art technology, then for reporters like me covering the elections, was the fax machine, the VHF or the UHF, the two-way radio or the walkie-talkie. And we were using computers with the Pentium microprocessors and the floppy disks, and using cassette recorders to record interviews. Those who are from bigger newspapers or from national newspapers had satellite phones, and some even had the clunky mobile phones then, which were introduced by Globe Telecoms a year before, people were already able to use SMS using those huge non-portable cell phones. And if you are lucky, if you are a correspondent of national daily, like the Philippine Daily Inquirer, you can have the unlimited long distance calls and the free fax machine services, the free faxing through RCPI. At that time, we have not ditched our typewriters yet for computers. We would still use our typewriters. And for some of us, like me, we continued to draft our news stories using paper and pen. And it's something that I have never really gotten rid of. At that time, women candidates made up barely 2% of the, and much less in numbers than men as voters. I think that was like 64% of the voting population were men, and women consisted only about 36 something as voters. It was in 2012 in 24 that women overtook men as voter registrants. And yet today, as women continue to outnumber men at the polls, journalists who cover elections have at their disposal high-speed computers, cell phones, the social media apps. And for many journalists, the cell phones have become our all-around workhorse and portable office. We record videos and photographs there, even draft our stories and access our emails using our cell phones. Yet, even in these digital times, even if you have gone digital, the gender bias in journalism and the gender gap in elections in Mindanao and elsewhere in the country are still around. Even as we have transitioned from the traditional tri-media, the print, TV, and radio, to that is mostly digital and online, and diffused and overwhelming, the challenges for women in public life and for women as journalists remain immense. I think the challenge for digital journalists, women and men, vis-a-vis the women in the Mindanao, is to use their skills and technology in data journalism to highlight these numbers and give priority to the faces and voices of women as voters, as candidates, as elected officials, and their gender responsive agenda or the lack thereof. The Sustainable Development Goal number 5 on gender equality targets around 30% of the national parliaments to be occupied by women by the year 2030. Presently, the count, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, stands at 23% if you do not include those who are representing the party lists, and 28% if you include those who are representing the party lists. And as at the Philippine Commission on Women says in a policy paper, that 30% is the critical mass that scholars identify as the minimum percentage necessary for a minority group like women to be able to influence decision making. It is my hope as a journalist to be able to report, to be able to be there, to be present at that point in time when Mindanao local government units will be able to reach that goal too, to have 30% of elected officials, 30% women as elected officials. That is to be able to be there and witness that, because I know that's going to be a historic occasion, and I hope it will happen soon within my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina. Medyo may throwback po si Lina dun sa situation ng mga journalists sa Mindanao, ano? I remember Carol Arguillas is also a good friend based in Mindanao. She's the editor-in-chief of Mindan News. And then she was telling us before na parang to be able to file a story to Manila, they'd have to queue sa nag-iisang phone that will connect them to Metro Manila, and they'd have to phone patch. Uso pa dati yung phone patch. They'd have to dictate their story literally over the phone. And they only have 5 minutes to do it. And because the other reporters are breathing down your neck, waiting for their turn. But interestingly, the points that you raised, I wonder why, there's we said that, in women outnumber men in Mindanao in terms of voters, but are women agenda or women issues really being pushed? And if there are more women voters, how come we have not yet breached the 30% ceiling for women candidates and elected positions? So later on, magandang balikan natin yan, Lina, during the Q&A. For now, I'd like to call another Mindanao-based journalist, also another good friend, Mr. Froilan Gallardo. He's a veteran photojournalist from Mindanao. He does rain dance. Ay, binuking na kita, Kuya Froy.
Tama.
If you-
At kumakain
if
ng
you-
humba.
Oo.
Mahilig sa humba.
The infamous humba of Kuya Froy and rain dance. Nainggit talaga ako sa kanya every time nag-rain dance siya. And he will be discussing digital photojorn, of course, in the context of the Mindanao coverage. Hi, Kuya Froy. Good afternoon.
Hello. Narinig mo ba ako?
Yes,
Oo,
Kuya.
naririnig ka namin.
Well, laglaga naman ito. Ilaglag ko naman yung sarili. I started photojournalism yung time pa ng film cameras.
Awesome.
So, nung wala pang digital, hindi pa tayo sa issues, nahiya ako dito sa mga newbies. Parang hindi pa yata nila nakuha nitong digital film namin sa una.
Nabuking na yung age mo. Ibubuking mo ba? Hindi na. Wag na.
Kinabahan nga ako kay Lina kanina when she said cassette. Oh my God, I don't think these kids know ano ang combination ng cassette at ng ballpen.
Correct.
Oo nga. So anyway, yung gumagamit pa kami ng film, mga ASA 400, mga Kodak, mga Fuji, every time we shoot some maganda, every day, we have to go to the airport para ipadala ang film to Manila. And we have to spend about 5 hours travel, just go to the nearest airport, just to send the film to Manila. And another 2 hours talking to the editors about the caption. Ano to? So 2 hours yan. By the time na matapos, lanta ka na, you have to sleep over near the place of the airport. May nangyari na dun sa place na area na nagkinukoberan mo. Yun ang drawback ng that was before. Then when digital came, hindi diretso miracle, hindi diretso nga heaven sent ang digital came, nag-digital na. At first, we have to contend with a very, very slow internet. That one time, I had to sleep in an internet shop in Zamboanga City just to send 3 pictures. Biro mo yan, Ariel, 3 pictures na tulog ka sa internet. Grabe. Now, internet is okay. But ang problema ngayon are violent incidents happen in the areas which have no internet access. You have to travel 3 hours to get a good internet connection. At most of the time, yung ads ng, I don't know, sorry, Smart and Globe, PLDT, sometimes press release la kayo lahat. So anyway, what do you expect if you want to cover? This is what I usually, ang daming mga new graduate ng visual journalism at mga diploma photojournalism ask about sa akin. What do I expect in Mindanao? Mindanao is sabi pa ni Sir Jimmy, picture ko na si Sir Jimmy Domingo, na it's in the fringes of our society. Doon na kami sa pinaka outside the loop. Pero ang elections, ng elections ng Mindanao is just a macrocosm of what is happening in the entire country during an election. Vote buying, violence, intimidation. Yun na eh. Kaya lang dito sa Mindanao, napopokus kasi large scale eh. Yan sa Manila, Isang school lang merong bayaran. Dito, buong probinsya binabayaran. Buong family clan binabayaran. Yun ang violence dito pag sa Manila kung may pinatay isang mayor, isa lang. Dito 54. Yun ang grabe. So yan ang Mindanao. Mga we have the biggest casualty sa una. 33 journalists who died in one single day. It's the biggest loss in the entire world. Yan ang sa Mindanao massacre during elections, yung election period. Sir Jimmy, can you please show some of the pictures I brought up? Sir?
Okay, ito lang nga share screen. Teka, slide show. Ayun na, kita na ba?
Hindi pa. Wala pa.
Naka-share na.
Kita na
Hindi
po,
ko
sir.
nakita.
Nakikita na nandiyan sa screen.
Iba ito, digital journalism both lang nakita ko.
Yan, pangalan mo. Oh, yan. Okay, next. Yan.
Next slide. Pipindutin.
Ayan.
Yun.
These are the kinds of pictures you will encounter in Mindanao. Yung mga old schools, ganyan. Very, yung mga bata, mga tao. Everyone knows that it's really a good democratic process yan ng elections. Everyone is interested. Ganyan ang isang litrato. This picture is sa isang maliit na barangay in Lanao del Sur. So makikita mo yan. Ganyan ang pictures. Next, Sir Jimmy. Ito, this is how, tulad ng Manila, most of the mga followers are very with the election. Doon na natutulog sa vote counting, vote polling places just to guard the ballots. Ganyan talaga sa elections sa Mindanao. Everyone will sleep. May magdala ng pagkain doon ang natutulog yan. These are the pictures you will get in Mindanao. Next, sir. Ito ang wala sa Manila. Lahat, especially in the Bangsamoro area, Lanao Sur, may sundalo yan nagbabantay. Parang if you got scared by men in uniform, dito mag-collapse ka sa dami ng litrato ng mga sundalo. Parang hindi yan community control, army control ang elections. Which, para sa akin, it's better na mayroong army control kaysa walang control talaga. Kasi Comelec is really helpless pag nandiyan during sa Next, sir. Ito, this happened in one of the towns in Lanao Sur. Away yan. And I learned a very cultural thing during this incident. Ang nag-aaway, hindi mga lalaki, babae. Lina, take note, mga babae, because their culture says nga, hindi magalaw yung mga babae. Yung Maranao culture is very respectful sa women. So yung mga babae, ang nag-aaway sa sundalo, using their slippers, hinahampas yung mukha ng sundalo, and the soldiers can never, walang magawa. Hindi sila pwede makaretaliate kasi mga babae yun. And the women kept on banging the heads of the soldiers with their slippers. Saan ka makikita ng ganyan that the soldiers had to bring in lady soldiers just to stop. Parang ang away na is babae to babae. It's one of the most colorful coverages that I have. Next, sir. Meron pa ba? Oh, ito ang sabi ko sa iyo, ninyo. Mga watchers sa gym ng Lanao. Kita mo yan, ang dami yan for 5 days. 5 days for 1 week. Sometimes nga, umabot before without yung electronic voting. Aabot yan ng 2 weeks ang counting sa area, sa mga places na ganito in Mindanao. Doon, sabi nga ng kaibigan nato Ariel na yung mga tao ni if you remember si Garciliano, 2 weeks is very long period for them to tamper on the election returns. 2 weeks sabi nasa amin yung election return pre, ano gagawin namin? I-change namin ng number. Kasi nandun 2 weeks.
Ang tagal, pwedeng manipulahin.
That's why ako may second thoughts ako na parang yung nag-protest na let's go back to manual counting. Ito nako, aabot tayo ng 3 weeks dito. Those people were saying that doesn't go down to the level ng election dito sa baba. Sir, meron pang last na picture. Sir?
Ayan. Ayan, oo. Yung may lamesa.
Ganito yan. Sa most Christian centers, sa paghanap lang ng pangalan, ang dami ng people, voters, nag-mill around sa teachers. Kaya natin-filtrate na yung teachers. Ganun ang kadami. Ganun talaga yung estilo niya. People will gang up on kawawa talaga yung mga teachers. Next, wala na Sir Jim, no?
N. Yun na yung N.
N.
Okay.
Wala na.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. So, anong magawa ng digital information ngayon? Digital. Ang new aspect ngayon na I am really interested in is how disinformation and fake news will play ngayong elections. Kasi tingin ko ang disinformation and fake news are the newest threat to democracy. How will it play ngayon sa Mindanao? Kasi ngayon, the national PPI, national Rappler, yung Inquirer, ang mga fact checkers are limited to the issues ng national candidates. Ano yung mayari dito sa local? Walang nagpa-fact check sa local. At doon ang very intense ang rivalry sa local elections. Right now, at problema yon because local politicians carry all the national candidates. Sila ang mag-decide sa swing vote for the national candidates. Presently, the information war is centered in the radios and Facebook. Facebook lang ang digital information. They still go for the radios, mga black timers, away yan sa radio, local TV, Facebook, tawag namin dito, Facebook TV, away yan. But nobody is fact-checking those outlets. Para sa akin, visual journalism naging out of the picture na sa itong bagong age ngayon. Photojournalism is on the slide. News orgs have now become limited budget for photojournalism, whereas before may they can send staff photographers to every provinces, isa-isa. Ngayon, they rely on bloggers or stringers. Bihira pa. Wala na. They rely more on the stories. And what kind of pictures ang ilalabas? Ang akin, most of the correspondents now are really here in Mindanao are walang barely making out a living. My friend Lina eloquently described the life of the correspondent, and who are expected to write the narrative of elections in Mindanao. Now, visuals are provided by bloggers, and who are not even trained to be photojournalists. And sometimes, worse, under the payroll of the politicians. Hindi natin alam who are they. Like yesterday, nag-cover ako sa Marawi sa yung pag pinakita yung mga firearms ng army, yung nakuha sa Daula Islamia. Actually, there were only 5 of us na legitimate. Tawa nga namin eh. TV5, GMA, tawa nga namin eh. Sabi ko, bay, if tayo lang 5, hindi ito magkagulo. Pero nagkagulo kasi ang daming visual journalists, mga vloggers na elbowing us, gano'n. And you cannot say just, matanda na ko, Ariel, mangaway eh. Sa una, dapat, sa una, batukan ko yan sa 200mm ko yung mga gago. Pero,
oo, wag na. Oo, kasi delikado.
Matanda na ako. I don't want to.
Ngayon, pulbusan mo na lang.
Joyce, sa una pa yan, batukan ko talaga yan sila. Pero hapon talagang pasensyoso na lang.
Oo, kailangan mo pang mabuhay na matagal. O kaya hinay-hinay lang, kalma lang.
Yun ang ako, digital information sana. Like yung fact-checking, it should be centered. Meron nagtumitingin sa local levels. Wala eh. For me, and visual journalism is losing in its eyes in this age of digital information. Wala na. Bira na lang talaga. Yun, I think I end my lecture, my piece here. Thank you po, Ariel, Joyce.
Thanks, Kuya Froy.
Thank you, Kuya Froy. You raised a lot of issues just like Lina did earlier. And para lang hindi ko makalimutan, I'll mention some of them now, but we will take them on later during the Q&A. Ang mga binanggit niya, interesting, how is Mindanao represented visually and textually sa narratives nating mga journalists and sa social media. Madaming misconceptions and stereotypes. So, an issue raised by Kuya Froy. May binanggit ka kanina na yung mga babae hindi magalaw sa Mindanao in general, yes, but that has been proven not true by the Ampatuan massacre. Remember that, Governor Manguda Datu sent his wife and they were not spared. Even the women journalists were not spared, Correct. Ang siguro tumatak sa akin dun sa mga points na ni-raise ni Kuya Froy is the need for a local fact-checking. Kasi sabi nga niya, while there are efforts now to do fact-checking on social media, ang focus is still on national issues. Pero alam natin na mas madaling kumalat disinformation and misinformation at the local level. It's difficult to catch and difficult to fact check, perhaps simply because no one's doing the fact checking at the local level. And he pins his hope on the digital platform to improve the situation in Mindanao. This will all be tied in, I think, by our third speaker, Mr. Professor Jamal Abbas, Board of Trustee of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, or JSAP, and he will be discussing social media elections and the Mindanao vote. Professor Abbas, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Sir Jamal. Good afternoon.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, very
Okay.
clear.
So, Shall I share my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Please go ahead. And while Professor Abbas is doing the share screen for our participants, if you have any questions, please drop them sa chat box and we will be entertaining them later after the during the Q&A.
Just a minute. Okay.
Yan.
Go ahead, sir.
So I'll be talking about social media, Philippine elections, and the Mindanao vote. For the past 7 years or so, the Philippines has been touted as the social media nation of the world. This is reminiscent of the time when the Philippines was being hailed as the texting capital of the world, even before the turn of the millennium. But at first glance at the statistics, it doesn't seem so. The country is not even near the top 20 of the highest internet penetration rates or adoption rate. Look at where the Philippines is. And according to the records, the top 10 internet adoption rates in the world all have 99% internet adoption rates. That means practically all the citizens there have internet connection. So, relatively low internet adoption rate. Add to that, we have low GDP per capita since we are not a rich country. We all know that we have very expensive broadband rate, high internet prices, and we have very low internet speeds. So how can we be the social media nation of the world? That seems to be counterintuitive. Well, most Filipinos may not have the fanciest iPhones or fastest Wi-Fi, but they don't seem to mind connecting to the internet and staying there for hours. The free Facebook schemes for cell phone is a major factor. It gives so many low-income Filipinos a taste of Facebook for free, even though they could not see the photos. Thus, when it comes to spending time in the internet, mostly using cell phones, the Filipinos are the world's champions. That is the reason why the Philippines is called the social media nation of the world, as reported by Rappler, Statista, and so many other sources. Now, South Koreans may spend more time in the internet than the Philippines, as you can see here in the graph. 10 hours and 46 minutes a day on the internet, while Filipinos spend only 10 hours and 27 minutes. But when it comes to spending time in social media, the Filipinos spend so many hours more than the South Koreans. So there's a difference in spending time in the internet and spending time in social media. Most Filipinos spend it in social media, while the South Koreans spend it in other places in the cyberspace. Also, the Filipinos spend more time in the internet on mobiles or cell phones, using their cell phones. So, I guess the title of social media capital of the world seems to be firmly in the Philippines' hands. But what do Filipinos do online? Interestingly, Filipinos top the charts in watching online video as a source of learning, especially now in the pandemic period. Watching vlogs seems to be very popular among young Filipinos. This is probably because mainstream media organizations like ABS-CBN support vloggers by putting them under contract and promoting them. They top the charts at 60%. Taiwan comes in as a far second at 40%. And most well-to-do Filipinos watch streaming TV, especially Netflix. And when they watch Netflix, they watch hours on end. And what many high school and college students prefer over attending classes is playing internet video games. Filipinos also top the charts in following influencers in social media. More than half Filipino internet users follow influencers. In sum, the Filipinos top the charts in many categories in social media. I suppose they deserve to be called the most social media nation in the world. Now, when it comes to getting news, according to SWS, 34% or almost a fourth of the Filipinos get their news from Facebook, 69% from television, 19% from radio, and only 1% prefer to read newspapers. But Pulse Asia survey done in September 21, 44% of Filipinos get the news from Facebook. So that's a jump from 22% to 41% of Filipinos getting news from Facebook. Social media platforms, despite criticisms against it from all sides, Facebook remains the #1 platform in the world. FB was used by 2.9 billion people in the world. YouTube was used by 2.56, while WhatsApp was used by 2 billion. In the Philippines, Facebook is used by practically all Filipinos who have access to the internet. The key word here is access. According to the data from most sites, there are 95.2 million FB users in the Philippines, or 84% of the population. Now, this data could not be correct. This number is being bandied about everywhere, but this is misinformation. The number is equivalent to all Filipinos 9 years old above, plus the children aged 5 to 9 years old. So this is a population. This means that all of this, from the third row up, all of them have Facebook users, and including half of the 5 to 9 years old. Well, actually, the number probably means FB accounts, including FB pages owned by people in the Philippines, because many people have several accounts, including FB pages. The troll armies of politicians usually require each cyber soldier to have at least 5 FB accounts. So maybe that's why the number of FB users are so big. But despite the inflated figures, users of FB, Facebook, and its sister app, Messenger, are still so many. We go as high as 70 million. And this is so much more than the other social media platforms like Instagram, Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. Social media for election purposes. The fact that millions of Filipinos spend most of their time in social media means that that is also the best way to get in touch with them. Mainstream media like TV may still be a great way of connecting with the electorate, but online media may prove to be a better alternative since it is much cheaper. According to Pulse Asia, 63% of Filipino adults use the internet, 84% in NCR, 65% for the rest of Luzon, 62% in the Visayas, and 47% in Mindanao. So the statistics are clear. At least 68% of Filipinos have internet access, or about 75 million people. That is more than the estimated voters for the 2022 elections. COMELEC announced that there are 67.5 million registered voters for the coming elections. And the Filipinos top the world in time spent in internet and social media. Filipinos with internet access generally spend 10 hours and 27 minutes every day. So it seems clear that social media is very, very active in the Philippines, and so in the elections. Let's go to the 2010 media elections. So-called social media elections is not a new phenomenon. The Cambridge Analytica scandal exploded in 2018, where whistleblower revealed that CA obtained personal data of some 87 million Facebook users 1.2 million of them were Filipino Facebook users to help political personalities. And Cambridge Analytica's parent firm claims it won the 2010 election for the Philippine president. In an interview with Maria Ressa, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower Christopher Wiley said that they would make money as they go into the countries with relatively underdeveloped regulatory infrastructure or questionable rule of law, where it was easy to get away with things and create propaganda and support politicians who would be willing later to pay back favors, unquote. In 2016, let's go to 2016, social media. The 2016 polls was branded as social media elections. Many PR teams organized troll armies during the 2016 elections. Now, several PR personalities came out admitting such things. These are armies of people organized to use social media, especially Facebook, to promote their candidate, spread disinformation on opposing candidates, bully the supporters of opposing candidates, spread their posts far and wide by sharing them several times. According to many reports, Facebook helped Mr. Duterte win the elections. In fact, international publications like The Guardian even mentioned allegations that Facebook helped Duterte in more ways than one. There seems to be more to it than meets the eye. As it says here, Facebook placed its staff in the offices of Rodrigo Duterte when he ran for president of the Philippines in 2016, even though Duterte ran on an explicit platform of vigilante violence and extrajudicial killings. Now, Mr. Duterte did not have a bona fide national political party. He did not have as much money as the other candidates. He was hardly known outside the Davao region. He does not come from a nationally prominent family. He really had nothing to boast of aside from allegedly making Davao City prosperous. And there were allegations that he killed people. In fact, he admitted them. He boasted it. So Duterte's win was really something for the books. And many say he had help from a certain kind of book. After the elections, the troll armies continued. But this time it was just the army of the winning president. Anyone posting against the president's policies would be attacked with threatening comments, and according to Maria Ressa, even threatening rape and death. Fake news proliferated. Internationally, Facebook was accused of helping authoritarian regimes like that of India's Modi, Philippines' Duterte, and USA's very own Donald Trump. In 2019, Los Angeles Times warned Americans that troll armies is a growth industry in the Philippines and might be coming to the American elections. In the 2022 elections, it is now being defined as truly social media elections. There is a pandemic and human movements are somewhat restricted. In a news article by Media News, it says potential vets already started advertising on Facebook as early as 1 year before the elections. Several politicians, both local and national, were mentioned as paying for FB ads, like these guys, Trillanes, Villaferte. Fake news. In a CNN Philippines news report, the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting reminded Filipinos to try to discern what is fake news and misinformation in social media, as, quote, it remains a key player in the upcoming 2022 elections due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In January, there's quite a fake news going around in two regions of Mindanao, Sorsogon and Davao, and it's all about supposedly a vaccine exempt card. So if you have this card, you'll be exempted from taking vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines, and still get same privileges as those who are vaccinated. That's just an example of fake news going around. Now, Mindanao voters, some of them here earlier mentioned the numbers of Mindanao voters. Zamboanga Peninsula has 2.3 million voters. Northern Mindanao is 3.06 million voters. The Davao region has 3 million. Sorsogon has 2.6. Caraga region has 1.9. And the BAM has 2.4 million voters, registered voters. And approximately 3.6 million are Muslim voters. Now, what are the issues? Usually in Mindanao, the number one concern for the national public is peace and order, mainly because it gets the most media mileage. Every election, there are so many areas declared hotspots by COMELEC and put under the control of the PNP and AFP. Now, for an outsider, that is good news. The ballots are going to be protected. But that can also be bad news. That makes the PNP and AFP control the elections, especially the counting of the votes. Now, I regard it as a bad news, by the way. No solid South. In an online forum hosted by Mindanao News on November 30, 2021, the panel of experts declared that there is no such thing as solid South or Mindanao vote. Now, let's see. Arab Estrada won overwhelmingly in the 1998 elections. They overwhelmingly in Mindanao. It looks like a solid Mindanao vote, but he could not translate his votes to that of his running mate. In 2004, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo won all over Mindanao except in ARMM. Now, some people consider this a miracle, since FPJ, the king of Philippine movies, was universally acknowledged as unbeatable in Mindanao, like his best friend, Arab Estrada. Apparently, Hello Garce was not very effective in ARMM. In 2010, the impeached former president still won Mindanao with 40% of the votes, even though he lost everywhere else. In 2016, it cannot be denied that Mr. Duterte won a great deal of the Mindanao vote, winning 23 of the 27 provinces. He is the first person who grew up and lived in Mindanao and who ran and eventually won the presidency. Anyway, you cut it. It surely looks like a very solid Mindanao vote for Duterte. It also looks like a good, solid Muslim moral vote. His running mate Cayetano won only in 6 provinces, Duterte's 5 provinces of Davao and Surigao del Sur. So we go to Mindanao's 2022 elections. Can Mr. Duterte's solid Mindanao vote be transferred to his anointed candidate? In 2016, Robredo won 13 provinces, Marcos Jr. won in 8. But this time, the 2 candidates from Luzon will have to consider Manny Pacquiao, born and bred in Mindanao. And Mr. Marcos has a Davaoeña for a running mate, Sara Duterte, who happens to be Duterte's daughter. And there's also some people who think, there are many people, including Duterte's people, who are campaigning for an Isko Sara ticket in Mindanao. So it looks like anybody's ball game in Mindanao. On the campaign trail with John Nery, this was mentioned by the first speaker. Last February 20, Isko Moreno's team went to Cotabato City and Maguindanao, while Robredo's team went to Iligan and CDO. Both teams were met by enthusiastic crowds. Solid South. It looks like both Robredo and Moreno have strong following in Mindanao. The candidates have politicians backing them up. Robredo has ex-ARMM chief Mujib Hataman and CDO Mayor and Misamis Oriental gubernatorial candidate Oscar Moreno, among others. Isko has congressman and gubernatorial candidate Ismail Magudadato, and the apparent support of BAM Chief Minister Murad, among others. I said apparent, that's not sure. Pacquiao is a born and bred Mindanaoan and has strongholds in Sarangani and Jensan. Marcos Jr. has a daughter, has Sarah, his daughter, as running. Marcos Jr. has Sarah, daughter of Duterte, as running mate. So it looks like anybody's ball game in Mindanao. To get opinions on social media situation in Mindanao, during this election period, I interviewed two Moros who are very much involved in today's electoral process. Well, I suppose they know something about the mood in the grounds, as it were. Amir or Chavi is a newbie in politics in the sense that his very first time to run for office. He's running for councillor in Cotabato City, but he comes from a family steeped in Mindanao and Philippine politics. Mac Jihad, his family in Lanao del Sur and Del Norte, is involved in politics in one way or another in both places. Now he is helping his younger brother, Mo, chair of the Mindanao Multi-Sectoral Advisory Council, organize a movement for Lenny Kiko, especially involving the youth. He's quite... So the response is, how much impact does the social media have in this election? Chavi said only half of the people there is aware of social media as an election tool, but Jihad said it is a big factor in influencing voters, especially in highly urbanized areas in Mindanao. Is fake news a factor? Chavi believes fake news is a big factor, since most people cannot tell what is true and what is not. Jihad believes the opposite, as he thinks that because of the pandemic, the people have learned not to believe everything in the internet. Probably he's talking about COVID posts. But there are a lot of news going around in this election. Are there a lot of fake news? Both say there's a lot of fake news, but Jihad said it is very small compared to the last elections. As he said, it does more harm to the perpetrators, and media platforms are quick to sanction malicious activities. Are you or the people or groups you know campaigning for candidates using social media? How so? Both say that there are a lot of candidates using social media, mainly for publishing daily activities. Chavi said he has an FB page dedicated to his candidacy. Are they spending on ads in social media? Jihad said national candidates do, but he has not seen local candidates do so far. Chavi said he boosts his FB post once in a while, and from time to time he sees his opponent's ads, FB posts. Do you think there will be honest and fair elections overall, nationally, in Mindanao, in your district? And both said no. Chavi explained that either Comelec has long been accomplice to the cheating or its people are plainly inept with regard to cheating. 7, what are you learning about social media in relation to elections in your region or district? Jihad believes that in BAM and most places in Mindanao, vote buying is widely practiced. So he said candidates save their money for that instead of spending money on ads, social media or not. Chavi, on the other hand, is thankful that candidates with little funds can now have a platform where they can reach a wider audience. Now, to get a better feel of sentiments of the people of Mindanao, especially that of the Bangsamoro, I put a Google ad in Facebook, a Google Doc ad. It's a survey form titled On Digital or Social Media Interaction, a survey on the characteristics of residents regarding digital or social media. Now, FB said the whole Mindanao is too big a target. So I just limited it to Davao region, Cotabato City, Socsagen, Holosulu, Barm, ARMM, and Marawi. And all voters, all voting age 18 to 65 plus. And the results, it got a reach of 9,408, but only 212 people clicked the link, and so only 46 people answered the questions, the survey questions. But anyway, 46 people, what they think, it's a good enough number to see how the people in the ground really feel. Are you a registered voter in Mindanao? Only one said no. almost half of what is your first criterion in voting for a candidate? Almost half of chose candidates' qualification as the first criterion in voting for a candidate. 30% chose campaign platform or promises, and 8.7% were candid enough to choose a relative or friend. How do you usually get to know your candidate? 37% of respondents say they usually get to know their candidates through social media. 21% chose personal meeting, while 22% say through mainstream media. Now, this is quite significant. There are more people who get to know their candidates through social media than through mainstream media. Is a candidate's campaign platform or promises important to you? Well, respondents say, yes, they are important, 87% of them. As shown earlier, that is the second highest consideration after a candidate's qualifications. Except for gaming, how often do you go to the internet? More than 3/4 of the respondents say they go to the internet 2 to 3 times a day. Now, this proves with statistics that Filipinos spend a lot of time in the internet. Do you believe everything you read in the internet? Well, they do not necessarily believe what they read in the internet. 39% say they believe some of it, while 24% say they do not believe everything in it. 19.6% say they believe half of it, while some 15% believe most, if not all, that is put on the internet. So, from the numbers, it looks like there are still 15 to 20% who are most susceptible to fake news because they believe everything in the internet, or almost everything. Do you think elections in your area are honest and clean? Well, 35% believe that elections are never clean and honest in their area, while the same number of people believe that sometimes there were clean and honest elections. Now, there are 22% who say that most of the time elections were clean and honest, while about 9% believe that elections in the area have always been clean and honest. So we have the never and sometimes answer overwhelms the most and always responses, 57 to 31. What is the biggest hindrance to clean and honest elections? 41.3% of the respondents say vote buying is the biggest hindrance. And 32.6% believe that political dynasty is a big hindrance. The remaining respondents, 26%, believe that cheating is the biggest hindrance. Half of them say cheating in the counting at the prisons, while half say it is cheating by COMELEC. Can the internet or social media help bring about a cleaner or more honest elections? The respondents who are quite optimistic that social media can help bring about a cleaner and more honest elections are twice as many as those who don't believe so. 67% against 33%. How can the internet or social media help bring about a cleaner or more honest elections? While there are some who say that social media cannot help, there are many more who said they can. These are some of the suggestions, many of them, really. In other words, the respondents are saying that social media can help bring about a cleaner and more honest elections by being the platform for people to post any anomalies or irregularities in the electoral process, as well as being the platform to better educate the people on detecting anomalies on the electoral process, as well as detecting fake news. On the other hand, some respondents don't like social media because there are many fake news there, according to them. Conclusion: when it comes to spending time in the internet and social media, mostly using cell phones, Filipinos are the world's champions. That is the reason why the Philippines is the social media nation of the world. It is but logical for candidates to reach out to the electorate through social media because there are many, and it is widely used and is much cheaper. According to Pulse Asia, 84% of adults in NCR use internet, but only 47% of adults in Mindanao. Thus, the internet is only half as significant in Mindanao as it is in NCR. Since 2010, people have allegedly manipulated the electoral process, mainly through social media. International political consultants, Facebook, PR firms, troll armies are allegedly involved in the Philippine electoral process. Various groups have called on Filipinos to beware of fake news and misinformation on social media as, quote, it remains a key player in the upcoming 2022 elections due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are many people susceptible to fake news. From the sample survey, 50% believe most, if not all, that is in the internet. 39% believe about half of what is in the internet. Chavi said most people there cannot discern what is fake or not. There are 15.5 million voters in Mindanao, with Muslim voters in Mindanao numbering around 3.6 million. Many areas in Mindanao will be labeled hotspots and be put again under COMELEC and PNP military control. Is there a solid Mindanao vote? Will there be an overwhelming vote in Mindanao for one candidate this year? Not likely. Votes will most probably be split many ways. Among the survey respondents, some don't like social media because there are many fake news there. But a great majority of them believes that social media can bring cleaner and more honest elections. Thanks to 2022 Global Overview Report by We Are Social and Hootsuite for the graphs. I'm Jamal Ashti Abbas, and I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abbas. So for now, we'll have first a reactor to our speakers, and then we will proceed to the Q&A portion. I'd like to call on, hold on, there you go. I'd like to call on Vincent Castillos. He's the Chief of the Legislative Research Division of the Bangsamoro Parliament. Good afternoon, Vincent.
Yes, Ma'am Joyce. Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon po.
Thank you for inviting me to represent as well the BARM Parliament's Policy Research and Legal Services. So, can I start with my reaction? No po? Right.
Go ahead, please.
So, yeah. First, I'd like to thank the speakers who made efforts to really think about the issues in the South, especially relating to this upcoming election. I agree on most of the points noted. I agree with the aspirations for more recognitions with the gender inequality that is happening in the South, especially in the BARM region, and also with Sir Froilan's presentation of the images that can be observed from below. However, in terms of posing the question of an effective digital journalism, especially, I could only speak, let's say, in BARM area. I'd like to pose a question whether digital journalism is really that effective, especially in BARM. Noting that in this region, we are experiencing connectivity issues. Now, let me share to you a survey which I so happened reading a while ago. This is a survey on the status of connectivity in BARM. If you look at the whole data suggests that BARM and Region 9 has the least percentage of internet connectivity. Okay, so our highest percentage of households without internet access. So the survey was conducted 2019. So I'm hoping to have more updated data on this one, but we could have a sense. We could have a glimpse of the the condition in BARM. I could only perhaps some anecdotal experience when I was in Zamboanga last week. The internet there was very difficult as well. So kaya medyo nahirapan rin ako sa pagtatrabaho when I was in Zamboanga. But at least in BARM, so only 76% are households that do not have a computer. And then 76% yung those who are without communal cell phone, 92% those without telephone line, and then majority are still relying on television. So this could be somehow related to Sir Jamal's presentation on the, of course, he cited researches at least in the Philippines, but this one is very important since it is concentrated in BARM and Region 9. So 91% are watching and 79% is using their cell phone. But in terms of using computer, in terms of using internet, so you could still see this wide disparity. So I'd like to emphasize as well that in BARM, 86.6% have the highest number of individuals who are not using the internet. So this is still a large. So and then the other things that you could observe in this survey, so you have in terms of the access of data, but you could download this one. I just searched this one as well in Google. So data-driven governance. So to strengthen ICT data collection. But what I'm pointing out is in terms of noting the digital journalism, I think we could ask the question of whether it could really extend to the BARM region, noting that we still have problematic internet connections and accessibility. And aside from that, the data given, of course, a while ago is in terms of the media consumption of Facebook and YouTube is based on the Philippines, but hoping, of course, to also have some data that can be thrown, let's say, in BARM region and how this region consumes media. In terms of the proliferation of bloggers and FB pages and propaganda, I agree, of course, that they are not trained. And they could be an instrument, of course, of propaganda and proliferation of fake news. But on one hand, you could, at least on how I observe it, they somehow kind of make the politicians accountable in the sense that there are, I don't know if we could call them a citizen journalists who are constantly watching them, and pag may nakitang mali, they would immediately post it in the social media. So to a certain degree, to a certain extent, they somehow provided kind of checks and balance to those politicians. And to end my notes, siguro, in terms of what kind of vote needed, or what is this Mindanao vote? Siguro we have to take into consideration in the survey given by Sir Jamal, is it about vote buying? Is it about qualification? Is it about you have personal relation, or is it a relative? But you also need to take into consider when you look at the Mindanao vote, the very condition of the region, especially in Barm region. Sir Froilan have shown to us the security issues, the violence, of course, that is still being seen in the region, being experienced in the region. And because of such context, I think, I don't know if I could simply relate it to that. May perhaps could explain why Duterte is popular, why there is a solid support in strong man or strong leader. And I could also observe that on the politicians who are running in this region, that they are not weak families. They are strong families. They are strong clans. And I think the political and the dangerous and the violent context of the region somehow at play on determining on what we call as the Mindanao vote, or at least in my case, what we call as the BARM vote. So I think those are my reactions to the presentation. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Vincent. Okay, at this point, we'd like to call all of our speakers, Lina, Froilan, and Professor Abbas. And Vincent, please, if you'd like to chime in, then it's also would be very much welcome to answer some of the questions in our chat box. There is first there's a reaction. Let me read first the reaction of Mr. King Kalisangan, faculty member of the Notre Dame University in Cotabato City. He said, I can relate to the stereotype shared by Sir Froilan regarding how Mindanao is presented through print media. I had this experience when I studied in Manila. I would like to acknowledge Charlie Saceda is also with us here in the Zoom room. Hello, Charlie. When he studied in Manila, his classmates asked how many times do we experience bombing incidents in Cotabato City. Yeah. Lina, Froilan, paano ba? How is Mindanao represented textually and visually in mainstream media if you differentiate national and Mindanao-based media? Ano ba yung mga typical stereotypes to begin with?
Sinong sasagot? Lina, ikaw muna.
Ay, nagturuan.
Sino? Lin o ako?
Parang hindi pa ready si Lina. You can take the
Ikaw na, Sir Froy.
Okay, thank you, Len. Ako na. Ang problema kasi ng with Manila is parang titingin lang yan ng storya namin sa Mindanao. If controversial, if yung may violent, di ba? Parang
yeah.
Sabi nga namin mukhang yata impetus tayo sa marketing nila. But there are so many outlets rin dito. One for is Mindanao News na we are going for development issue stories. Yun ang maganda yung mga development stories, yung for example, like ano ka ng bombing, ano ka, yeah, it's true. But what's that? Oh, that's only good for 3 days. But na-hamper yung, like what I'm doing now, I'm very interested now is, for example, I'm writing a story on how the vaccines, how the Igaonon lumad accept vaccine, and how did the medical frontliners yung kinalaban nila, yung vaccine hesitancy.
Yeah.
I really found out that I found out that it's IEC, good IEC program lang. And that's the story. That's the story. There's so many stories, especially right now ng mga lumad. They should not be parang typical ba na lumad, underpressed, tulad ng isa, yung for PPI, I wrote for yung
Yes.
yung
Fellowship.
Fellowship, yes.
Or the fellowship, yung ano ba yun? Yung higaw sa talaandig na method of farming na ano sila. And it's a great story. For me, it's a great story to look ng ganyan eh.
Of course, Kuya Roy, we do not downplay the bad news. I mean, news is news. Kaya lang ang nagiging problema, parang nawawalan din ng context minsan. So if you're bombarded with bits and pieces of bombings and terrorist attacks, parang ang tumatatak na lang sa isip mo is, it's a very hostile area. It's a very conflicted area.
Yeah, pero ano yan eh. There's so many, like for example, this yung coming March. Ang ganda ng story sa Lala.
Yeah.
1,500 couples will be merong mass wedding sa Lala. Lala, Lanao del Norte. So for me, national media, the story about Mindanao is not wala sa ma-focus in the national scene. Or the focus, even nga for Mindanao and among Mindanaoans, wala eh.
Sa local ba, is there an effort? Lina, do you want to take on this? Paano ang presentation visually and textually ng Mindanao among the Mindanao journalists?
Depende pa rin kung sino yung mga Mindanao journalists. But you can see that there is a huge effort done by the group of journalists through the Mindanews. And it's like a cumulative effort that they're doing to present Mindanao in a different light. Other journalists, local journalists, still follow the same patterns, and there's also we cannot also set aside or sideline what is happening with public reporting, public affairs reporting of the government. We might call it like propaganda, partly propaganda. That they are presenting a different take on Mindanao, except that as it has always been in the past several decades, since 27 years ago, yung take nila on the peace and order situation, yun ang problematic sa akin sa government media. Otherwise, development efforts nito ng government, especially hindi lang sa national, kundi sa local. Okay sa akin yun, except yung perhaps also because I have I do not agree with the way they cover local media cover peace and order issues and the war on drugs and the PJ case. Yeah.
Si Ami Cabusaw, our vice chairperson, has a comment. She said, Ami, of course, is from Mindanao, no? She said, while we cover conflict, we also cover so many things about Mindanao. Oo, ang mahirap pag magiging parang two-dimensional lang yung coverage and nakafocus lang lagi dun sa conflict. Before I ask the question of Suharto Ali to Professor Jamal, meron lang point kanina that was raised about whether there is really such a thing as a solid South vote. based on the discussion of the speakers earlier, it was mentioned that the sitting president and immediate two past presidents, no, not immediate pala, 2 of 3 past presidents, Arroyo and Erap, had a solid command of the Mindanao vote. Is it something that really exists? Meron ba talagang Mindanao vote? Professor Abbas, would you like to take on this? Sir, sorry, please unmute po.
In the case of GMA, she lost the ARMM vote. She won Mindanao, but lost the ARMM. So there is no solid vote there. I think ERAP, of course, has been very, very popular in Mindanao, and just as FBJ was. But then, why did FBJ lose in Mindanao? Is it because of Hello Gasi? And in the 2022 elections, maybe there won't be a solid vote because it will be split among the candidates.
But kay Duterte, sir, it was really solid.
Oh, solid, very,
vote
very solid. And also the Moro vote is very, very solid.
Was it a reflection of some sort of sentiment? Because she was also, of course, the first presidential candidate to, come from Mindanao.
Yeah.
May ganung sentimento po ba?
He lived there and he grew up there in Mindanao. And it's really, it's a pure Mindanao vote. We are all regionalistic, whatever religion, we are all regionalistic. And Duterte was also boasting of his Maranao lineage.
Yes.
So that added a lot.
Sir, isa pa, there was another issue raised kanina and I wanted to ask you. I think it was Froilan who mentioned this Talaga po bang hindi daw nagagalaw yung babae sa Mindanao? Because, the Ampatuan example sort of disproved that.
I have a different theory with the Ampatuan. And I think that is exactly why they sent the wife, because they thought that he wouldn't be, as a lady, she wouldn't be touched. But, well, I have a different theory on who is really the mastermind of the Ampatuan massacre.
Joyce?
Yes, go ahead, Kuya.
I think it's the massacre, yung paggalaw sa mga babae. I think that was the exception because even with Abu Sayyaf and ibang rebels diyan, pag babae hindi talaga ginagalaw. Mataas ang respect. Although sa Dawla Islamia, they ask you to wear burqa.
Yeah.
Mag-headdress ka.
Wear
Yan ang problema rin natin. Kasi before, when we cover, our colleagues cover Marawi or Cotabato or any area, Basir, talagang nag-respect tayo ng culture na headdress. But now, wala na wala nang headdress
Kuya, I remember one time, kasi syempre sa Malacanang press corps, parang parachute journalist naman kami, di ba? Hindi naman kami talaga bumababad. But I remember every time we have to go somewhere sa Mindanao, we will be reminded talaga na you cover your head, you be very respectful of the culture.
Ngayon, meron pang iba rin, nagsa-short pants na So, para sa akin, it's the erosion ng respect. Ang problema yan Because tayo rin, media rin ang nag-ano din. Yung tayo personal.
Yeah.
Remember the case when in Marawi during the siege, na nandun kami lahat sa Capitol, merong government station nagluluto ng adobo doon right in the middle of the park.
Oh my God, yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember that one, yeah.
Nagulat ako.
Buti hindi mo dinagukan.
Ha?
Buti hindi mo sinaktan.
Hindi, buti hindi sila sinaktan ng mga Maranao.
Exactly.
Mga Maranao ang pumunta sa kanila na sinabihan sila na haram.
Yeah. Of course, you have to be very respectful, Your press ID does not justify not being respectful of the culture of the area where you're covering. May comment lang dito and then I'll go to Suharto Ali. From
may I say something?
Yes, of course, Lina, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, may I say something about violence against women in the Mindanao context? I think it's a myth that women are untouchable, because if we look at the Philippine Statistics Authority data on women and violence, it's everywhere. I don't have the figures now, but it exists. Women, whether they are journalists or not, have been subjected to violence even in their homes. I mean, the quest to have safe spaces for women in Mindanao need to be highlighted, and it should not be like set aside, especially during elections.
Actually, Lina, that's what I wanted to point out, Nina, when you were mentioning the data. Parang if women outnumber men in terms of the voting strength, di ba dapat mas may push tayo for the women agenda?
Yun nga. Pero that's nga, as I said, that's a tragic irony. And I think it has something to do also with the Philippine Commission on Women. It's the policy paper there that I've just read 2 days ago. It says that it's also because of the prevalence of patriarchal norms.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's a macho culture pa rin.
Yeah, and we are chipping slowly into that. And also the fact that other factors come in, not only gender. When you choose people to govern, and you choose people to lead, so other factors come in: social status, education, relationship, as mentioned
political
by
class.
Yeah.
Malaki.
Clout, yes.
Yeah.
And
actually, I'm also reminded, Ariel, you remember the story of Julie Alipala? For our fellowship, that was such a beautiful story. Some of them are widows, the wives of former MILF combatants, and the simple exchanging wooden guns, toy guns, into real toys. Diba? Parang that really changes the mindset of the kids who will grow up to be future leaders in their area. Ito, quick comment lang from CP Maute. Sabi niya, as a person with a controversial surname, yes ma'am, even though I don't belong to that group, it's really alarming, the stereotyping in Mindanao. Oh nga, and the other day, you have the military announcing that Maute leader taking over as emir of ISIS in Southeast Asia.
Joyce,
yes, go ahead, Troy.
Yan rin ang angst ko ba? Bakit ginagamit pa rin sa lahat ng ating agencies network? Multi-ISIS pa rin ang ginagamit na term. Dapat hindi na. Dawla Islamia na. Yan
I think that's the statement kasi of the military. So, they just reported it. So, dapat yung military din may ganun.
Ang dami ng mga military ngayon, Dawla Islamia na ginagamit. It's us ang naggamit. Manila is
But what's the difference between Dawla Islamia and ISIS?
Hindi, okay lang yun, sir. Pero if you put Maute, ISIS, hindi naman lahat sama yung sabi ni ma'am na sila ang matatamaan yung may Maute na family name.
Apelido.
Yan, apelido kasi.
Kapangalan, oo.
Nakakatakot.
Kaya nga, Joyce, itong pag-uusap.
Tanungin nyo ang ISIS. Kasama ba nila talaga yung taga Mindanao?
That's what the
What? It's ISIS, huh? What does it ISIS mean? Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Walang Mindanao doon. Kung may Mindanao, ismis yun.
ISIS Southeast Asia daw, sir. Sabi ng military.
Kalokohan nila.
Of course, that's also a problem because it's a he said, she said reporting. Ano? Wala naman tayong direct source from ISIS. Sorry. I'm not sure if my internet is choppy. Am I clear, Ariel?
You're doing good. Yeah, you're clear. You're doing good.
Okay, sorry. Because the may nag-pop up na alert. Nag-choppy daw. From Mr. Suharto Ali. Question to Professor Jamal Abbas. Misinformation or misleading context related to the elections and martial law has been a rampant issue nowadays. Media and communication practitioners are facing a tough challenge to address the fake news virus. So Harto, let's not use fake news because news in itself is never fake. So to address the disinformation siguro and misinformation virus. Anong question niya? Wait lang ha. What do you think? I skipped some part. So sorry. What do you think, sir, could be the best way for academic institutions to help address this problem? We all know that we have the MIL in senior high, but do we think this is enough or DepEd and CHED should add more? Professor Abbas, sir.
I introduced a course in my university, fake news, where I taught the students how to detect fake news, look at the sources, blah, 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 blah. And, but I think first and foremost, the teachers themselves must learn media literacy. They should know what's the difference. And really, you know, my experience during the elections in 2016, I asked the first SEM and the first early part of the SEM, I asked my students, who are you going to vote for? Here in Metro Manila. And the majority, 90% of them wanted to vote for Duterte. And I asked them, why? Do you know him? Most of them said, no. So you just know him through Facebook. You believed in the memes? Yes, sir. So I said, okay, study. Research. Who is he? Listen to him when he talks. Listen to the others and tell me later on. And after a few weeks, I asked them, so almost at the end of the show, I said, anybody still going to vote for Duterte? And I asked one student who happened to be gay. I said, oh, you're a Duterte diehard. Are you still going to vote for Duterte? And he said, no, sir. Baka patayin pa nila kami. So he studied it. He studied Duterte's stance. And by the end of the SEM, I think only one or two of the students still remained Duterte fan. The rest was not. So just tell the students, do your thing, research, study.
Actually, sir, just to let our audience know, that's one of the advocacies of the Philippine Press Institute. In fact, in all of our scholastic programs, we really include a fact-checking and verification module at the end, where, it's just not telling the students that this is not what you should believe in, but equipping them, inoculating them, to use the vaccine analogy, with the tools, with the know-how, with the wherewithal to be able to do fact-checking themselves. So the simple use of Google search operators, the simple use of searching for metadata or doing reverse image search, lateral reading, napaka-importante. And di ba, Ariel, what we're pushing for is the moment a person is able to connect to the internet, dapat nag-start na yung MIL studies niya. Baka nga kung college, late na yun eh. Dapat earlier, way earlier.
May I say something about the Marcos thing? You see, when I asked my students were asking me, but sir, we asked our parents, our grandparents, they all said Marcos was, life before was so good during Marcos' time. And I couldn't blame them because actually during martial law, there were very few of us who were against Marcos. Just the Moros mostly the Moros, and he only has a few political warlords with him, and the communists, the intellectuals, and the oppositions, the Liberal Party, we're very few. Most of the Filipinos, I remember when we were during assassination of Ninoy, the funeral procession from Santo Domingo to where's that, Loyola Park. Most of the people really went to the streets and but watched it, but they were afraid even to make the Laban sign. They were doing it but hiding it. Very few of them really. And it took a lot. That's 1983, and 3 years after bago nagkaroon ng EDSA.
Yes, sir. Indeed.
Marami talagang Marcos people.
Question from Christopher.
Choppy Joyce, Choppy. Oo, Choppy si Joyce, oo. Ayun, may problema na sa connection mo, Joyce. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, Christopher?
Go ko na po. Bali, my question is, sa ngayon kasi election na po and marami na pong lumalabas ng mga misleading information or misinformation or disinformation. But as you said earlier in the presentation, a lot of or majority pa din na population in the Philippines don't have any access in internet. So which means they don't have also access in misinformation and disinformation. So ibig sabihin po ba nito there's a chance for a candidate to win in truthful election because they don't have access to information, disinformation and misinformation. Kumbaga, ang labanan pa rin dito, facts pa din, tamang informasyon pa din.
Anyone want to take on that?
Sir Jaman.
Yeah, there's fake news can also be spread by word of mouth.
Yeah, I was
in fact,
about to say.
A lot of it spread by word of mouth.
Yeah.
Merong isang comment dito si Mr. JC Kailan. Sabi niya, as a student with an MIL subject, dapat daw even the teachers need to improve their skills sa MIL.
Correct.
Because he has had professors or teachers who share fake information as well sa social media. From Nor Fatma Kadarangan, I'll just read the question kasi medyo mahaba. She's wondering whether media is already unhealthy or is it empowering? May feedback? Could we ask our participants to mute themselves if they're not speaking? Yeah, because just reading this book and then sa last part of the book, it was mentioned that media has become a tool to manipulate information. And freedom of speech has been threatened endlessly by higher-ups. So yung limited na raw yung pag-disseminate ng important information or what the public really need to know. Froy, Lina, would you like to answer this question?
Lina, ikaw na naman.
Si Lina.
Si Froy ang women empowerment niya para ituro si Lina. Kuya Froy.
Hindi yata nakakonect.
Ano?
Ayan, okay na.
Which book is this? Which book is this?
I think it's a book on misinformation.
Walang title binigay, Lina.
The title was not given.
One thing is clear for me is that traditional media or the kind of work that we're doing is sidelined. We no longer hold the kind of power our stories no longer hold the kind of power in the digital spheres, in the social media, or maybe I also need to know certain skills that that is not inherent to the.
Sorry, I think we lost, or there's a technical problem with Lina.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir, go ahead, please.
Media does not present reality. It represents or presenting reality again. So that depends on many factors. Its owners, advertising and editorial judgments, whatever. But really, just look at the Ukraine war right now. Watch BBC and CNN and watch RT and the Chinese CGTN. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
But I think we acknowledge, of course, that the shaping of the truth and the presentation of what is truth is influenced by a lot of factors. Not just the goodness of the hearts of the journalists, but who their owners are, who the friends of their owners are, advertising, etc., etc., etc. And of course, the bigger context is the environment in where they operate. But I'd rather have a media that is lacking and that is, needs improvement than not have a media, a democratic media at all. And I think our experience during disasters, especially last year when there was this very big typhoon and we had no regional media reporting on the calamity that struck certain provinces because TV station had to ABS-CBN did not have a franchise at that time now already, so there was no regional report. It took 2 or 3 days before we could be abreast of the news of what's happening in northern Luzon. Diba? They were already submerged in floods and we did not know because no one was reporting about it. So yes, we acknowledge that there are we fail sometimes, but we strive to do our best as an industry. Wait, I will hold off first on the question on disinformation, but I will ask on sa elections, babalikan lang natin. Ano ba talaga ang concerns of the Mindanao voters? Meron bang specific concerns for what we call the Mindanao vote? Because in a recent survey by Publicus, they said that the top election issues now are economy, jobs, education, poverty, corruption. If you look at that list, pang-5 lang yung corruption. We're not very concerned about, whether politicians are pilfering or plundering our coffers and public funds. Paano sa Mindanao? May nakita ba kayong pattern? Ano ba ang concern ng mga tao ngayon for these elections?
There you go.
Kuya Far, go ahead.
Ating tama rin, may kunting tama rin na people don't care na merong graft and corruption as long as ewan ko, as long as merong makikita sila na project. Merong project yan. Parang sanay na rin na there's really a crap of corruption, but what we want is there's a suitable, merong working infrastructure nakikita. But sabi ng on the issues ng Mindanao, number 1 is agriculture. Agriculture, and please differentiate yung agriculture na corporate agriculture sa mga taong talagang walang-wala. I mean, you see, punta ka na sa daan between North Cotabato, passing the Mulug to Kabakan Road. kita mo ang highway dyan, the highway, ginagawang solar dryers ng corn every harvest time. And I kept on wondering, why can't this government just build basketball court along the villages para meron silang portable, meron silang solar dryer? I mean, how much is the cost for a basketball court na pwede pa social center for events? Meron pang and for what? Ginagawang solar dryer yung daan. I mean, wala talaga. Ang bagong issue na ngayon is nakita ko rin yung yung sa Lantapan na supposed to be DA's parang cold storage na vegetable cold storage for the vegetables na inaugurated last year. Hanggang ngayon hindi nag-operate. One building. Kasi wala pang refrigeration dumating. So, yung ba where will it fall? White elephant na naman yun.
Interconnected ba, Kuya Froy, na parang because the poverty incidence is also very high in Mindanao. So ang concerns niya talaga gut issues no?
No, that connects with poverty That connects agriculture pag hindi na that connects to poverty. And then poverty, galit na mga tao, insurgency. Diba? Dadating ng insurgency. Then bigla na lang, if they don't like ang residents, if they don't like violence, and nandun sa kulto. Diba? So, nandun, nagka-connect yung lahat
Yeah. I think the...
Number one is agrarian reform. Number two, yung agriculture. At saka yung sa city urban center, middle class, yung medium scale businessmen. Yun ang talagang key backbone na kaya ng economy ng Mindanao.
I see. I think our representative, our actor from the Bangsamoro would like to add to the discussion. Vincent?
Yes. I'll just like to agree and somehow second to your thoughts. In fact, it's related to a book that I recently reviewed on moral politics. That in terms of, you have two public spheres, let's say the mass spheres and the middle class spheres, and you could see the diverging moralities that these two public spheres are holding. So in terms of the mass spheres, or the masses, they are not really much concerned about corruption, but their main concern is really to address their basic needs, because that's the thing that they are really in need of. And in relation, you have also mentioned that this point as well, Ma'am Joyce, on the fact that Barm region is one of the poorest regions in the Philippines. So perhaps we could, make a safe correlation that the kind of class or the kind of condition that this region has somehow has a crucial role in determining what kind of leader they want to vote or they want to support.
Vincent, there's a question here in the chat box. I'm not sure if you would kindly want to answer this, or our other speakers would also like to take on this. From JR Bugarin, ang sabi po niya, yung report daw na hindi pa rin stable yung internet connection in Mindanao. Bakit daw po hindi na-address ng Pangulo at taga Mindanao siya?
I don't know if I can speak in behalf of the president. And at least in the Barm Parliament, I think there are some efforts. Although at this point in time, I don't have clear knowledge on what are the long-term plans terms of strengthening the connectivity, especially yung Basulta. So yung the island provinces na yun ang usually complaint na
That one it's difficult kasi just to the tech side, it's difficult for fiber optic internet if it's not a landlocked area. So kung island area is really difficult.
Yeah, yung sa island provinces natin. So hopefully at least in our office we could write a policy note on this one kasi ngayon ko lang rin to na when I was reading on digital journalism and connectivity in the region, ngayon ko lang rin na-realize. That's why I'm very thankful for this event that it somehow caught our attention in terms of the problem of internet connectivity in the region. And maybe we could lobby this one, especially to our members of parliament, to craft legislations so that we could strengthen the internet connectivity and communication throughout the whole region.
Anyone else would like to add to that? Otherwise, I will read one more comment and then I will call on the person assigned to do the synthesis. For our final comment from our audience, si Russell Amoroso. Sabi niya, insight regarding the stereotype issue in Mindanao and now the elections is that journalists must consider and apply conflict-sensitive journalism in news writing and reporting to avoid to one-sided stand and articles and certain issues that may lead to misinformation. Yes, that is really something that journalists should practice. It is part of ethical reporting. Kung wala nang idadagdag yung mga speakers natin, Sir Professor Abbas, Roy, Lina,
wala na.
Ayaw na.
Ayaw ko na.
Ayaw na. Gusto na maghumba ni Kuya Froy. Now, I would like to call Miss Maria Ninochka Herrera. She's the Department Chair of the Communication and Media Studies Department of MSU Marawi to provide to do the synthesis of our discussion. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay. Maayong hapon sa tanan. Assalamualaikum. Pagbati ko mula sa Mindanao State University, Marawi. After hearing all the inputs, the questions, the answers, it is indeed timely to have this webinar. We must be equipped. We should know how to identify, filter, and call out the spread of disinformation. Just like the other observations shared, I find it disturbing when a significant number of people use the word bias or bias without even understanding it, or worse, use it to mean anything na kontra sa gobyerno. I find it alarming when people claim something is true, even if it's not, simply because they saw it was shared by friends in Facebook. Nakakatakot rin when educators are the ones who keep sharing disinformation. At ibang level rin, yung disturbance na naidudulot when after being fact-checked, we are responded with, respect na lang, opinion ko naman ito. The past few months may have also brought us to awkward situations where we've been asked, sinong iboboto mo? Or anong kulay mo? That may have led to us and them to unknowingly share this information as well. These exchanges may have triggered all sorts of emotions. Some may have even found themselves needing to cut or sever ties, due to differences in views. What should we do? What else can we do? Hanggang respect my opinion na lang ba tayo para walang gulo? Now, more than ever, we need to have this kind of conversation. No? We can't help it. Eh. For the news media practitioners we have this afternoon, thank you. Maraming salamat po. Kami in the academe, we look up to and pay the highest respect to what you all do in the field. Your sharing of experiences and practice remain valuable to us, most especially for our students who aspire and ask how to be you po. Sabi nga, journalism is like history in a hurry. Stories told today will be the basis of tomorrow's history. So thank you, Sir Froy, Ma'am Lina. No? Padayon lang sa paglambo, padayon sa atong mga maayong at tinguha o katuyuan. For my fellow journalism educators, conversations like this remind us of the basic principles we hold on to. This must help us, no? Make us rethink and review what we've been doing. Do we encourage critical thinking? If yes, how so? Does it translate to actions outside our classrooms? If not, bakit hindi? Are we doing enough to let the new generation understand and learn from the past to find the relevance of these at present? For our students, do we simply rely on and accept what the professors say and give? Or do we also learn how to question them? Kamusta naman ang results ng recent surveys in our schools and universities? No? Anyari, antunay na, no? Antunay ni. I remembered, okay, what story or stories could these be telling us? While listening in this afternoon's webinar, ang daming nag-come up, ang daming parang magandang yung mag-follow up, tayo, I don't know, no? Kung anong forma. Ang daming, parang each time merong nag-a-ask, nanganganak no? Yung discussions natin. Marami pang pwedeng pag-usapan. And in the midst, no? Of all, siguro, yung context natin, of all conflicts happening within our area and around the world right now, while listening to this afternoon's webinar, I remember these words from Arundhati Roy. So let me share. She said, a democracy that is not governed by a constitution and one whose institutions have all been hollowed out can only ever become a majoritarian state. You can agree or disagree with the constitution as a whole or in part, but to act as though it does not exist is to completely dismantle democracy. Perhaps this is the aim. This is our version of the coronavirus. We are sick. No political party that intends to win elections will or can afford to take a moral position because there is fire in the ducts. The system is failing. What we need are people who are prepared to be unpopular, who are prepared to put themselves in danger, who are prepared to tell the truth. Brave journalists can do that, and they have. Brave lawyers can do that, and they have. And artists, beautiful, brilliant, brave writers, poets, musicians, painters, and filmmakers can do that. That beauty is on our side, all of it. We have work to do and a world to win. Yun ang sabi niya. Good luck po sa ating lahat. Sana all mahaba ang pasensya. Sana all would take time to do fact-checking. Huwag tayong magsawang mag-aral, magtanong, matuto, umintindi at magpaliwanag. Kailangan natin ito. Sa lahat ng bumubuo ng webinar, maraming salamat po and wasalam.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Ninochka. That was it was a hopeful message, and it's also a call to action. It's a challenge for all of us, you know.
And what a way to end this webinar, Joyce, diba?
We have to rise to the occasion, even if it's difficult. Even
Ganda
if,
ng takeaway. Madaming
yeah.
takeaways tayo. Oo.
So, napaka-enriching ng ating discussion ngayon, Ariel, ano? And sabi nga ni Miss Ninochka, parang every time may question and may answer, nanganganak pa ng ibang diskusyon. I think we learned a lot. We could even add to this discussion. Malay natin, baka we need to do an assessment or a reflection after the elections. Ano pa ba? Maraming salamat po sa ating mga speakers, to all of our participants. Before I call Mr. Guts Heineke, I think he's with us now.
Yes.
I'd like to invite everyone, please like the Facebook pages of JSAP, of PPI, and Seidel Foundation. Doon niyo po makikita yung mga upcoming activities ng PPI and ng JSAP and ng Seidel, and you might want to participate in some of those activities. And not very sure if there will be a survey, but otherwise you might see a survey link later sa chat room. Kung kailangan, please fill it up so you could also get your certificates upon completing the HSF survey. Oh, there you go. The survey link is now in the chat room. Ariel, would you like to add to this before we call on Mr. Heineke?
Yeah. Yun nga, Joyce, no? Sabi nga ni Ma'am Notch, ang dami natin pwedeng pag-usapan. At siguro we have to continue the conversations and discourses, albeit in small boxes, because that's the only limited thing we have to do right now. Madaming takeaways, pero I'm struck with the suggestion on having a local fact-checking mechanism. Kasi papalapit na at tsaka madaming misinformation, disinformation outside Metro Manila, and for sure napag-iisipan na natin ngayon paano sa mga friends natin sa academe, probably they can engage with other sectors in the community to come up with a group ng fact checkers locally. Tsaka yung a follow-up discussion on this. In fact, Joyce, yung podcast namin in March will be handled by Mindanao, our trustee for Mindanao and Vice President Amalia Cabusaw, who will also be focusing on Mindanao issues. So stay tuned. That's going to be on March 21 podcast natin. Oo. Okay. Sige, tawagin na natin Joyce, di ba? To wrap this up and to end this wonderful afternoon, I'd like to call the resident representative of Seidel Foundation to the Philippines, Attorney Guts Heineke. Hello. Wait. Dito ba siya?
Sir Guts, if you are in the Zoom room.
Yes. Sorry, I am. I just had to manipulate the computer. Yes, as well from the side of the Seidel Foundation. Thank you very much for this wonderful seminar this afternoon. Thank you very much to the PPI. Thank you very much to the GSAP, exactly, for this interesting and quite hot topic. I mean, as Seidel Foundation, we are foreigners here, and when it comes to elections, we are always a little bit scared. But I think we stayed neutral in that conference. It was about politics, but it was not promoting a political side, and for that reason, I'm happy. 150 participants in the peak time and the peak season was great, especially for a seminar on Friday afternoon. So I think we can all be happy, and let's enjoy the weekend now. So Ariel, having said that, once again, thank you very much. 10 from 10 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Seidel Foundation. Thanks, Carol, Mike, Attorney Gus. Joyce, panghuling reminder natin, if you guys, professors and educators, andito ngayon sa chat room natin, we have a scholastic press outreach program wherein we can partner with universities and colleges. So we're bringing that program around the archipelago or in the Philippines. So just email us and look me up on Facebook, Ariel Cervantes Sabilino. So let's talk about it. So we can bring the scholastic press outreach program to you wherever you are via Zoom, of course. Ayun. Sa hapon na ito, nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyong lahat. Sa Seidel Foundation, sa mga participants, sa ating resource persons, at kay Joyce Pañares, ating seminar director. Sana po magkita-kita po tayo muli sa other programs ng PPI. As I said, all you have to do is just visit our Facebook page so you get details of our other activities. Having said that, enjoy the weekend, everyone. Keep safe and see you next time. God bless. Yay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Ma'am Lou,
Thank you,
salamat
Jay
po.
Sap, ulit.
Thank you,
Joyce.
Joyce.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you po.
Ma'am Lu, thank you.
Oo. Meron pa tayong mga
Yes,
public
natin,
forum.
sir.
Dapat one day,
Apat.
dapat isang araw ito eh.
Bitin ng
ba?
discussion.
Hindi, part 2 na lang natin kasi minsan, di ba, pag medyo
Oo.
Oo. Ayun.
Siguro post-election. Post-election.
Anyway, meron pa tayong parang 2 public forums with JSAP Joyce, ano? Kasi this is a seminar. So meron
Actually,
pa 2 public forums.
Ariel, naalala ko lang because someone mentioned dapat daw after elections yung next. Remember yung sinasabi ni Ms. Carol, yung pinupush niya, na dapat pagka-elect na accountability naman yung next program natin.
Correct.
How to hold elected officials accountable.